What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Dad's Life Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Flac 2.0, coming at you live and direct from YouTube. And here in the studio via satellite, I have with me, I got Mr. Krinlee up here.
What's up? What's up?
I got NjordGod over there.
How's it going, y'all?
We are short somebody today. If you listened to last week's episode, you would know he's out of town because it's preseason football is over and they're doing their draft. So he is out of town. So shout out to Sensei Jon. Hopefully you're having a good time out there. And we always hope you have safe travels coming back.
Yes. And I hope you get the best draft picks you can get.
Right, that part. Okay, so before we get started, always want to do a shout out to everybody that's following us, but for sure for those patrons, I can't say thank you enough. So we're going to say thank you again. If you aren't a patron, you can go ahead and head over to shadowpackwest.com and hit the become a patron button there. Take you to Patreon, where you can be, you can start your patronage for as little as $1 a day, or $1. I keep saying $1 a day. And that's like an old advertisement for something else. Sorry about that, guys. It's $1 a month. And you get access to our After Dark show. We have close to 20 After Dark shows at this point, or behind-the-scenes episodes at this point. We get a little bit more controversial over there, a little bit more loose. But it's paid content. That's why we could do that there. So anyway, if you're interested in checking us out and supporting us on that end, you'll get access to those. Other than that, though, guys, that's all I got for our first early show shout-outs. What do you guys got? What's going on with you guys?
Well, I want to actually make a shout out to anybody who's going to be watching us live. Like, you guys are awesome. We just had Audrey Griffin Brooks come on in. Where Jonathan? He is actually out of town on a draft pick. But yes, please, if you guys are here, you're in chat. The way we're going to be running our live session is you guys go ahead, type away. We will type back and respond. But at the end, we will address any comments or questions that you guys had throughout our podcast today. So shout out to you guys.
Yeah, shout out to you guys. Krinlee, did you have anything?
Well, I guess since Sensei's not here, well, someone's got to do the shout out to the good men above.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's really all I got to say about it. But I'm not gonna do it all like he does, because he does it the best.
Yeah, so unique. And then
It's perfect.
Njord, did you have anything to add to what you started off there with?
No, I was pretty good. I like my shouting out the people watching us live. I like that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so today's topic, we've been talking some politics a lot lately, so we want to bring it back to something a little more dad life oriented.
Yeah.
And I got a signal from the peanut gallery.
Krinlee, what do we got to do first?
Oh, well, I was getting to that. I got to talk about the topic first.
Yeah, he does the overview, and then we get to it. You're excited. What do you got something special?
I know. He's like, don't mess that up. So we are talking about the birds and the bees, something that Njord brought to the table. He wanted us to kind of talk about that. So we're going to talk about it today. We'll talk about some experiences, and we'll see where the conversation goes from there. But before we get into today's main topic, Krinlee, what do we got to do first?
For the second time live, we've got to do what's in your cup. So obviously, Njord's got something to say. What you got in your cup, Njord?
I don't have a cup.
Oh, is it the
I've got a
point?
gallon.
Oh my goodness.
No, it is Milo's
like margarita.
lemonade. Milo's lemonade. It's not alcoholic tonight. It just
Okay.
It's
Drinking
bad. I
some
see
lemonade.
lemonade, and I'm like, ooh, margarita.
What's in my gallon? That's what's in today's. Okay, you know me, I always keep it sugar-free and sucker-free all day and every day. So today we're doing the 7-Up Zero Sugar. That's what is in my cup. I would give you the crack, but I already cracked it open earlier, so I can't give you the kach. So that's what's in my cup. Krinlee, what is in your cup?
Well, that's a surprise. You got to figure it out. You got to watch the last 2 seasons to figure out what's in my cup and guess what's in my cup. And Njord, what do they get?
If you guys are able to, even in live chat right now, sit here and tell us what is in Krinlee's cup, we are going to shout you out live on the air, as well as recorded and put out there. A shout out to you specifically. But it's going to be just a little bit more dramatic than that. No, Audrey, it is not tea. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to give you
the sultry tones of this kind of shout out with my voice changer, and it's going to be awesome. You'll get some horns from the great Sean Flac, and we're all going to have a blast and have some fun.
and then get back to business as usual. So that's what they get if they win.
Right. All right, guys. So in order to, it's a little something that we started off in season 4. So that's the first season we were all together, where somebody would guess, somebody would have something in their cup that you would have to go out as an audience, go back, have a good reason to listen to some of the other topics we talked about, and then getting that information, putting it in the chat, putting it in our comments on any of the episodes going forward, and you will get that shout out. So go ahead and check out some older episodes. Okay, so with that, let's get started. Who wants to go first? We're going to be talking about the birds and the bees, and I know this is something. Obviously, I think me and Sensei have the oldest kids here, so we've had that discussion before. I know you two gentlemen do not have the older kids. Well, I know for sure Njord doesn't. But I know Krinlee. I don't know. Are you kind of close to having that conversation with the kids?
I'm getting there. My oldest is 9, almost 10.
Okay.
So yeah,
Yeah, I'm getting
you
there.
are.
Yeah.
I mean, closer than I want to be, for sure.
Oh, for sure. for sure that.
So what I kind of want to get into first, honestly, and this topic just might take our entire session today.
Okay.
But how did you guys first find out? Like, do you all remember the conversations that you had? Do you remember? Did it start from home? Did it start from school? Like, did you go? I mean, not for Sean, but Krinlee, did you go onto the internet and have to like?
Hey, you. How about that? I'm not OLD yet. I'm getting there. I'm not OLD though. Okay. That's a very good question. So who would you like to answer first, Njord?
Krinlee, actually, I do kind of want to go with you because you are the closest to having that conversation again or next, right? So if anything, you're the one that needs to be the most prepared at the moment to have this conversation.
And I'm probably the worst one to need to have. Like, it's going to be on my wife, I'm going to be honest with you. Because I had a kind of weird childhood. Like, I've been aware for a very long, way before I should have been aware. This is going to be kind of weird, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. My dad actually had his own porn site.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
And
remember, we're judgment free.
Oh no, yeah, yeah. But it's also on the internet, so.
Okay.
Well, not anymore. He died like 14 years ago, but I meant the website's not on the internet anyway.
Okay.
That was a joke.
All right.
So,
we're getting serious in here, so I'm like, how do I respond to that? Okay, looks like we froze. Okay.
It's been.
We're back.
Yeah.
And we're back. Okay, go ahead.
It's been. Gosh, like. I can't even remember how long ago it was, but I was exposed to it very young. And when I actually did get the talk, it was pretty much like, well, we know you already know this, but here's an explanation of it. Kind of like a history of it, the way they explained it, which didn't make a whole lot of sense. They actually compared it to plumbing, funnily enough.
that for those of you guys who don't know, that was kind of a reference to some of our live discussions.
Right.
Yeah. So, but and then that was pretty much it for me. Whenever I experienced
Okay.
the talk, and I mean, we did have sex education in school too, but that was kind of a joke. It's like at that point, everyone that I was, went to school with was like, we already know this. This is kind of funny.
We could probably teach the class at that point, right?
Right. I mean, there were people pregnant probably about the same time that I went to school with. So, no judgment. I mean, it happens. But, I mean, taking the little sack of flour home was cool, though. That was a good experience for,
right.
Learning about childcare.
I was going to say, I never took a flower home. So.
No, it was a sack of flour, like a bag of flour.
Okay, yeah. They didn't do that when we went through. I guess I am old balls.
Maybe it was an actual.
I'm sorry.
baby.
What was that, Sean? What?
What was that?
Maybe
little word?
I am old balls. Okay, all right, that's what I said.
I do remember a baby too. After that we had a baby. We took home. We had a bracelet that was attached to the baby. We couldn't get away from it. It was
horrible.
It was like the real thing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Horrible.
Now it's attached to my leg, and it's like this thing won't go away.
Get it off.
Okay.
All right, Sean.
Yeah, I'll go next. Well, okay, so there's very interesting things here, right? Because when this came up, I was like, wow, this is multifaceted. It's a multifaceted topic.
Mm-hmm.
Because are we talking about the biology of the birds and the bees and how babies are made? Are we talking about the relationship that happens between two people that have sex? Or are we talking about the whole erotic part of that?
So for me, I don't know if that was a question.
No, that was my thought
okay.
process. That was my thought process. Was what is how are we gonna attack?
Okay.
How are we gonna attack this question, right? Because there is different facets of it, right? There was, obviously, back in my day, we didn't have the internet, right? But they had Playboy magazine, they had, those things, right? So as far as being exposed to like the woman's anatomy, yes, that's how I was exposed to it. I'll say that, my good old dad here, and he's laughing just like he's laughing right now in this picture. Pretty sure he's laughing up above. My son is talking about some old shit. So as far as the woman's anatomy, that's how I was exposed to it. Like, oh, okay, little Playboy magazines here and there or whatever the case was. As far as like the talk goes, like my dad was older, so it was kind of like almost out of his hands. I did have sex education in class, and my dad had to sign the permission slip to say that we could have it and we could talk about it in school. So there was that biological part, right? Mm-hmm. And then again, the sexualization of the woman's body was from like a Playboy magazine, right? You just came right. Stashed around or whatever the case was. And then as far as the emotional attachment to something like, because we didn't, we did the video, the movie, but we didn't have the baby thing. That was after, and of course I grew up in East Oakland, so they didn't have the budget for giving, to send little babies home or whatever. And so I wasn't really, again, I don't know if sometimes this is a controversial thing because if you're more religious, the conversation's different. And even though my dad was, we went to church, he wasn't religious. So again, the conversation just formed differently. As far as being exposed to the physical aspect and what it does, again, those are the two ways. But as far as the emotional aspect, or again, the eroticizing or the sexualization of everything, that really didn't hit me until I was like already out of the house. Like I was a nerd in high school, so I thought girls were cute and and dated and stuff like that, but it wasn't like I need to go get laid. You know what I'm saying? There wasn't that need when I was growing up in my teens that's what I needed to do. So I knew about it. Again, my dad was a little different. And I'll tell you right now, my dad was a player. Like he had multiple women, and I didn't understand why all these different women would be coming around. Until, of course, as I got older, I was like, oh, this little one was a player. Okay. And here he is laughing again. I already could tell he's laughing already. But So that was the take on that. As far as how my exposure was, what I thought about it. Yeah, so it wasn't. Again, I didn't think it was too sexualized or too erotic, or there wasn't that aspect. It was like, if you do this, this is what's gonna happen. You know.
Right.
So yeah, that's my experience with it, or as I remember. And it wasn't a conversation; it was just exposure to certain things, and then it's like, oh, as I got older, it was like, that's, yeah. So I'll keep that comment for after dark. But so that's how I got exposed to that. Njord, what you got?
Okay. I have I think you brought up a really good point, about the religious versus the non-religious side of things, right? Because I have the unique what you want to call it, situation of where my parents divorced obviously when I was 3. One set of parents was religious and one set of parents wasn't.
Oh, yeah.
So I definitely remember very vividly my mom, the religious side, around the time that your kid is right now, right? 8, 9 years old, started getting these Christian-based books, right? That kind of went over, it went over the biology, went over the anatomy, went over, what the act is. Obviously tried to keep it faith-based, so the chaste until marriage, right? Like that, the whole aspect of all of that were in these books, to where really, like, there was nothing, obviously not eroticized, right? Whatsoever about it. It was just like, hey, this is what all of this is. Oh, guess what? You're going through puberty at the same time, right? Kind of explaining all of those changes within the body and how crazy it can make people be, feel, do all of that. And but that's really cool way of kind of doing all of this, because it forces the parents and the kids to talk,
Right.
And if you're not willing to do that, then they're just going to go hit the internet anyways.
Right.
But then on my dad's side was a lot more vulgar. That's I had 3 brothers when I went over there, right? So, and I was out there during the summers, so guess what? No parents at home.
Right.
They had things laying around in their room as well as
We keep freezing, so give us a quick second, guys.
the Oreos and the Pepsis, right? So when we would break in there to go find they had things in there, right? Laying around with the Oreos and the Pepsis, and when we would break in there to go try to get the Oreos and the Pepsis, we would find VHS tapes, or yes, I know, I just dated it back to VHS tapes.
Right. You're close to old balls. How about that?
Shut up. And there were jokes always being made, right? If we went to go stay at someone's house, like, we know what bed we're doing it in tonight, type. Like, again, it was just a completely different set of, like, one way was, hey, this is just kind of what we do. We don't really fantasize, romanticize about it, right? This is just how it is. Let's keep the religious aspect to it. And then the other side was the, oh shit, this is fun. Like, we're gonna get around to it. So it definitely, I think I had that unique ability to see both sides growing up. And it honestly kind of got me to trying to figure out randomly last week of what would I talk to my daughter about? How would I want to, in today's society, have that conversation, right? Because I'm going to be honest with you. I told my wife what the topic was this week, right? And she goes, the birds and the bees. I'm like, yeah. She goes, and the bees and the bees and the birds and the birds and the birds that want to be bees and the bees that want to be birds. And I'm like, rap.
Yeah.
again, so you guys have some younger kids too that are getting ready to go through all of this. So I wanted to start it with how did we learn?
Right.
And then adapt it to how are we going to have this conversation with our children that are coming to that point in today's society?
Well, see, so again, now we get into kind of like going back into what I said was, are we going to talk about the relationship of this, right? Or are we talking about the biological part where it is the male and the female?
So my answer to that question was going to be yes.
Right? I mean,
So
that depends on your answer, really. I would think.
right. So again, so that was a thought process too. Like and let me just comment on what you just shared here. I think that's awesome that you had both sides, right?
Right.
Of course, being young, you don't necessarily know which one is right until you really could kind of go back and take a look at it and be like, oh, it was unique. Not one was right or not one was wrong, but you did have two different households, and that's why I was like, religious based versus a non-religious based versus
Right.
somebody with an open mind versus somebody that doesn't have an open mind. So,
Well, can I actually expand one more thing? Because I was just talking to a friend from church the other day, right? And this topic came up, right? Because I don't want to go too far. The dude's vanilla. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Okay, he was born, raised in the church, became a pastor, didn't really know nothing about sex until he literally told me he didn't really know nothing about sex until the pastor sat him down prior to getting married.
okay,
Right?
there's nothing
And
wrong with that. A man of the cloth.
Except for the fact that the issues that preceded in his marriage and divorce, right, were largely due to intimacy issues, right? And so one of the things that I was trying to sit here and from his words, what he told me is he went back to his parents and told them that they failed him. They failed him because sex was such a taboo topic that they never just ever talked about it, right? And it shouldn't have been that way. He goes, "You guys set me up for failure." Those were his words.
Ooh.
Okay.
Ooh.
So
Hold on, let me give that the
right. Again, there's something to be said about making it too restrictive of a conversation within the household.
right.
And that's something, again, I had this conversation with him before the last recording.
Okay.
So this is kind of like,
Okay,
hey,
let's talk about it.
yeah.
Okay. So who wants to go first? Because do you want to set some ground rules, or what are we exactly going to talk about here? I mean,
Well, I was thinking we could segue into the next session with your experience from your first one.
Yeah, how did you have that conversation with your oldest?
oh, okay. It was I'm not religious, so I'm not faith based or anything like that. I'm more of a when it comes to religion, I have my own relationship with the Lord, and it doesn't require me to go somewhere and preach, and it's about living to be a good example. So basically, with my son,
Can I just say how very pagan of you?
right. Hey, I put up Christmas tree every year, so I put up a Christmas tree every year, so that is very pagan. I am very pagan, if you want to say that.
I've got one as well.
Right.
I've got one as well.
Right. So basically, we just sat down and had a conversation. We sat down and talked about because me and his mom aren't together, right? So there's a relationship aspect that we had to talk about, right? That
Right.
me and your mom aren't together. We did have intercourse at least once, right? Because he was born, it happened. It had to happen at least one time. And I basically, told him, hey, when you're intimate with a woman, you're. For me, it was more about education and exposing him to what could happen if he was to do this unprotected. Because obviously, he was not planned, right?
Right.
Versus my other kids, we tried to have them. So again, what part of the conversation are we having at this point, right? So I wanted to obviously have the biological thing, you know, when two people have sex, a guy and a girl have sex. Yes, it may be fun. Yes, it could be a night of passion or whatever the case is, but it could be, you know, that one night could cost you the next 18 years of your life.
At a minimum.
Yes. So, don't do it. You know, if you do it, be protected. This is how you need to protect yourself. And protect yourself. Don't rely on her don't take her word that she's on birth control or anything. If you are in the situation where you are going to start having sexual activity, you need to know how to protect yourself. And that's the best you can do besides just not having it, you know, just not having sex. But this is what's going to happen. And me, I was a young dad and I gave up a lot because of him. Like I stopped going to film school. You know, I had to get a full-time job, made a lot of sacrifices, and I don't want him. And then the conversation was more along those lines. I didn't want him to suffer like I did. You know, you can have your girlfriend, you know, you can have your relationship, but when you take it to that next level, you need to protect yourself, number one. You need to, you know, and then unfortunately, it's not 100%. If you protect yourself,
Right.
It's not 100%. So just know that every time you have that action, it could potentially cost you the next 18 to 20 years. And what are you willing to do? So now at that point, I kind of put it in your ball game. The thing for me was letting him know what could happen when this happens, how to protect himself. And, you know, you really can't talk relationships with kids, you know, even young adults.
Right.
Because it's more they're thinking with the other head than the one on their head, you know, on their shoulders. So if you are going to do that, and again, that's just me being a realist, protect yourself the best way you can. But if this does happen, notice that you, number one, depending on how you guys decide to deal with this, you need to step up to the plate. You know,
Right.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. You know.
You know, you mentioned something and that just kind of spurred a thought in my head.
Okay.
Right. How many times did you have that conversation with him? Was it just once?
I want to say it was at least one major time, but he wasn't. You know, I don't want to put too much out on the air,
Right.
Because it's not my business to put his business out there.
Well,
But there are
right.
some situations that came through where we're like, oh, okay, whatever, you know.
And the reason why I asked that question is because you stated, you know, having the relationship conversation with a teenager, a young adult, and all that is very difficult to have because, you know, parents, we don't know anything, right?
Of course, we don't. Not until they're at least 30.
Facts. So the question that kind of just popped into my head again, Krinlee, myself, we're going to be having this conversation in the next 5-6 years. Me, right? Is it a one-time conversation thing, or is it like a couple year conversation type thing? Make it normal to where we can talk about it to where it's a safe place to have this conversation to where we're not just sitting here preaching, right? Because I don't know about you all, but anytime you got sat down in front of your parents and they started preaching at you, how much of it actually just went through one ear and out the other?
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. My comment to you on that one, it's ongoing. To answer that, it's an ongoing situation because, again, it's multifaceted. And that's why I say this. When we think sex education, right? I immediately, but logically for me, we're talking about the biology of a male and a female and
Okay.
making a baby. That's when we talk about sex education, that's what we're talking about. All that other stuff, the bees and the bees, the birds and the birds, that is not part of the sexual education conversation, in my opinion. That is a separate conversation because now we're talking about the relationship between two people. That to me, you could have a full discussion about birds and the bees, a guy and a girl, and then have a separate conversation between the relationship between two people.
But I think it all kind of goes hand in hand together.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. But what I'm differentiating, like I said, that's why it's multifaceted. I'm differentiating between, okay, we could talk biological, right?
Yeah, that's an
And
easy
then-
one-day conversation.
And-
Well,
Again,
depending on how you choose to do it, yes.
exactly. And then again, and this is when I talked about sexualization, right? The actual act of having sexual intercourse, and then the relationships that two people have together, right? To me, when we talk sex education, we're talking about the birds and the bees. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about making babies, right?
Okay.
And however you identify, because we could get into that and that's a whole nother can of worms.
Well, I
Right.
mean, it's definitely another thing that's added to the "Do I like you" checklist, right?
Yes, right. But to me, that is a completely different topic. That again, I'm gonna just throw this out there, right? And you know what? Kids are kids, right?
Mhm.
But in middle school, my son was like, "Hey, I think I'm gay." I said, "Okay."
Okay.
I said, why? He gave me his reason. I said, "Okay. Well, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna put in a pin in that conversation. If that's how you feel, I got no problem with you." And this is where the conversation changed because I had the discussion with him prior to this discussion. That's why I said it's ongoing. It's ongoing, right? Well, if this is the case, that means I don't got to worry about grandkids, right? That's
Right.
I don't got to worry about
Right.
you having a baby, right?
Right.
And I don't have a problem if you're gay. Like, so to me, you just alleviated one of my stresses. So that's what I said. Let's put a pin in this. Let's put a pin in this now. You're having trouble in school though. And that's what you're at school for. So again, having that discussion, hey, if that's what you do, again, I support you. And if you guys have listened to previous episodes, for me, it's always about finding somebody that makes you happy sooner.
Right.
So that you could be happy longer. Whatever that looks like. Yeah. So it wasn't that long, but whatever that looks like. So again, right now, all you did when you told me that was you alleviated one of my stresses. And that's fine. Right. But I need you to worry about school. That's what we're at school for. We could talk the other subject in a different time. But right now, when we were having the discussion, I said, hey, I don't got a problem with that. But right now I'm talking to you about school. Right. So that's why I say you could have, if all you do for me, when you tell me that you for my son, all you did was alleviate an issue. And now I might just have to beat the boy's ass. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you hurt my son, I'm still going to handle you like anybody else would handle you. So,
Right.
because I'm going to love my son regardless, right? That's not my life choice. That's his life choice. And understand, part of that conversation comes with the conversation of closed-minded people. If you go down this path, that's fine. But not everybody will accept that.
Right.
And that's what you have to contend with. And if you're okay with that, you're okay. I got no problem. You're not going to get that from me.
Right.
But somewhere around the line, you will have to contend with it. And I will help you fight that battle when it comes. That's why I said it's multifaceted.
And today, that's not even the real battle anymore.
You're right.
It really isn't the real battle anymore. If you would have asked me what, 5-10 years ago, right? What's the worst thing that my kid could ever tell me? It was that they were gay. Again, religious, right?
And
like,
no judgment on that. Yes.
And today my answer has changed.
Right. And
it would be that my daughter thinks that she's a man.
and that's a hard one.
Yes.
That's I don't even want to start commenting on that one because that one's something I can't even touch. Like that's something I don't understand. It's something that I can't say that there's a fix for anything. And I've seen
Here's the problem though, bud. Right? That's part of this conversation you're going to start having with your daughter. That's part of the conversation that Krinlee's going to have to start having with his kid.
So
Good.
No, I'm sorry. Not could. No. Okay, because one of the questions that our kids are going to start facing, right, is they take someone home they believe is one and find out differently. Okay?
Well,
or their partner used to be one, but now are another, right? It's not a could conversation anymore. It is a very
possible.
Real thing that our kids have to understand, especially if they're going to the store, they see a gentleman in a beard and a dress. Okay? Which I understand there have been cross-dressers for a very long time.
Right.
Okay? And that's not a problem.
Right.
Okay? But still, it wasn't like it is today's society. And I'm not sitting here and trying to trash that community. That's not what I'm getting at.
Right.
What I'm getting at is, how do we teach our kids to prepare them for society?
Well, right off the top, again, so when I think certain things, it's logical for me. I have to be able to attack it in a way that it makes sense. Right? Mm-hmm. That's just how I process information. Right? It's not about how I feel about it. So to me, your situation, you said, hey, I'm dating somebody, we're about to get hot and heavy, and you got some opposite parts you didn't tell me about, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so number one, I would address that with my son or daughter, right? Kick them to the curb because they lied to you.
Right.
It's not the point of they got a different part. It's the point that they weren't open enough with you to share that
Deception.
with you. Yes. That to me that's how I would attack that. Now again, you right on the spot. You do it on the spot. But maybe the answer's different 5 years from now, right? Maybe it is. But today, I would have to attack, or I would not attack, but I would have to approach it toward it. You were lied to, you were deceived. So let's talk about the relationship. If they weren't that whatever with you and you were deceived, right, then that's what you need to say. Hey, you're a liar. I don't need to have you in my life. That's that point.
Now, if you chose that, that's a different story.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah. If they were like, hey, I'm transgender, I still got a male part, or I got a whatever, and that's what, everything's getting hot and heavy, and that's what you're whipping out, and that, and that's what you're into, or your relationship, or the way you feel with this person is more than just sexual, and you just want to be comforted with this person or whatever. Oh, okay.
More power to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if they lied to you, if they deceived you, if they manipulated you, if they, drugged you, like got you drunk, and next thing you know, there's pictures of you getting, you know what I'm saying? Like those things, those are just evil people kind of acts that are happening. Mm-hmm. That's how I'd have to say that. Like, hey, be open. Like I ain't gonna lie to you, there's some transgender girls, you're like, God damn, she's hella fine. And then you're just like, oh, that's a man. Damn. And then there'll be like some women that wear hella makeup, and you're like, that's a guy, and you're just like, oh damn, that's a woman. So when it comes to those things, but if you're upfront, hey, and you really are vibing with somebody,
guess where that comfortableness though comes from?
What?
Our households.
That's true. Yes, if we're talking about the
being able to being open enough to be able to have that conversation and that topic that starts with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. 100%.
And that's kind of why I'm trying to broach this topic, because again, this conversation with my friend in the church is what spurned this whole thing, right? Because I told him, I'm like, dude, before you get married again, because he started dating again recently.
Yeah, good for him.
And I said, before you get married again or you start going down that path whatsoever, you need to do something. You kind of need to you need to research.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant like, hey, man, you better smash that. No.
No. He's not. He's very much one of those that, marriage only. Okay.
All right.
But I told him, look, it's going to sound a little skeevy. Okay. It's going to make you feel a little gross or whatever, but you need to research what you're into. Okay. Yeah. Like, otherwise, how are you going to help your partner intimately, right? If you don't know your own self.
Right.
Yes. How are you going to help satisfy their needs if you don't know what needs you've got?
Right.
Right? And guess what? That's part of that learning curve of this topic still. Right?
Absolutely.
Having a safe place with your parents to be able to sit here and have conversations about this part of the act, this part of the act, this part of the act, and all of that. Now, my next question to you, Sean, because again, you've already had this conversation once, and it was with a boy. you're going to be doing this with your daughters. Are you going to be changing the script at all? Are you going to have a different set of standards or rules for your daughter?
You know what? What I'm gonna defer is like one of the things we had talked about when you had your daughter, right? And we talked about parenting, and you said, "Remember, oh, I have my way, I have my way," and then we had the discussion maybe months later, and you were like, "What I didn't realize is that I have a wife as well, and she has her way, and so we have to."
Battling with that still today.
Right. So, obviously, I am married this time, and obviously, these are not oopsie kids. And I'm gonna tell you, son, if you're listening to this, I love you. Don't regret it for the world. So if I'm saying oopsie, don't be offended by it. But again, life experiences. This is what happened, and I love you to death. But we tried to have kids. You know what I'm saying? So we fought infertility. So the relationship is different between me and my wife, and that relationship spurns now with, just like I raise my kids differently with her, that conversation will be different as well. Now, as far as me and what my vision for it would be to have the discussion with my wife, and see how she wants to approach it. Again, are we talking about the sexuality of it? Are we talking about the relationship part of it? Like what exactly, or how are we gonna? But my thing is, I want to have a strong daughter. So my part, my biggest fear, is that my daughter will be taken advantage of, or she be tried to be taken advantage of by somebody. So within what I'm going to be saying, it will have to be more along the lines of, I'm going to show you how to protect yourself. I'm going to show you how to communicate as best you possibly can. I'm going to show you how to stand up for yourself.
Here's the bear mace. Here's the taser. Here's the
right here. The first thing you do is kick him in the nuts. That, you know what I'm saying? Like that'll be, but I want to make sure that she's okay in herself and work on her self-esteem, to know that she's strong. My wife is a strong woman, so I don't think we're going to have a problem with that. But again, the actual conversation is going to change. And then she has an older brother. She has two older brothers at this point. So again, I will still, hey, when you have sexual intercourse, this is what it is. It is what it is. And I know one day she's going to have kids, right? God willing, one day she'll have children if she wants them. And I'm going to know that my baby girl had sexual intercourse with some other man. Now, I'm going to tell you, as far as who this person's going to be, hopefully they'll be vetted through me. Hopefully it won't be an act of passion, alcohol-driven passion where we're at a wedlock. I mean, for me, I would just love it to be where she just was somebody that she loved and was comfortable with, and they had a baby because they wanted one together, not oopsie. But I'm dad, so I'm gonna bust his ass, from the first minute I see him, and I'm gonna let him know I'm gonna bust his ass I'm gonna bust him in the head to the white meat, and it's on recorded live. What am I looking at? Oh yes. But yes, I mean yes, for me, the going back, and I know this is a really long-winded answer, but to going back, yes, it will change. It has to change, because of my wife, number one, and then I've grown. Like my son, that's the thing about your first kid, is your first kid is with you, like is also learning to be a kid as you're learning to be a parent. Now, the second kid, they get the better part of you, right? Because you've learned a little bit more, right? And any other child after that, and then your grandkids, right? You know what I'm saying? Like if you ever see your dad with your children, right? It's like,
I never got to.
Oh, sorry. But they're just like, hey, that little kid's gonna run amok. They don't care because they've evolved, they've changed, and they're not about that life no more. And that's how I feel. I'm gonna evolve one day too. Like hey. So yeah, it has to change due to circumstance and through the way I felt I've grown as well. So
okay. Krinlee, do you so you said that your time is coming, right?
Yeah.
And is this with your boy or your girl?
My daughter.
Ooh.
Your daughter. Okay.
Yeah.
So have you started thinking about this? Have you game planned anything? Have you and your wife had the discussion? I mean, where are you at in this whole?
I mean, we have talked about it some. I mean, I've thought about it for years. I've always had the mindset of, you don't need to have kids. You don't need to get married. You just need to stay and live with me forever, hang out and have fun. I know it's not going to happen, but all right. So the goal, the way I see it is, have a more in-depth conversation with my wife, obviously, and then her have kind of, well, maybe both of us, but her do the talking, have the talk. Excuse me. Have that discussion with her, but then I'm going to be in the background like, well, you need to focus on a school. You don't need to worry about boys, girls, whatever else. You need to worry about getting out of school and what you're going to do with your life, because that's the most important thing. I mean, if you find somebody that makes you happy, that's great, but it doesn't have to be intimate, and if it is, just be careful and be safe.
See, I know how I was in high school.
Exactly. And that's why I'm not worried about my daughter, because I know how I was in high school, and I know how the girls were. Well, girls,
so you need to worry about your daughter.
But I mean, well, I was turned down more than I was accepted, so I don't know. From my point of view, it was more like I don't know. But anyway, hey, it helped me grow as a person. No, but I feel comfortable for her making smart decisions. Obviously, she's not hit puberty yet, so that might go out the window in a year or two as far as smart decisions go. But we'll have the talk. Like I said, my wife, and there's reasons that I don't want to put out there.
You're good.
Why I want my wife to have that conversation with her, showing because my wife has had her own experiences as a little girl.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to be there. I want to be, to let her know I'm supportive of her no matter what, but to push for education so that she can be an independent person, not depend on someone else.
Okay.
But, let her know that it's okay to be comfortable with other people.
And hopefully comfortable talking to you all about it, too.
Of course, yeah.
So, again, my question is still directed at Krinlee, just because you're the next one up to have this conversation, right? Is there anything that you have taken away from this evening's conversation about all this that you're like, that may have changed my mind on something, or, I need to do something a little differently? And the reason why I'm asking you is because I've still got 5 years or so, but
it's coming.
It's coming.
Yeah.
Right around the river bend, right?
Right.
So I'm planning now.
Right.
Right.
And you will and it's a constant thing. Like I said, I've been thinking about this. First of all, since I was a upper teenager, I've always wanted a daughter. I always knew that when I had kids, I wanted to have a daughter. But so I've been thinking about this for a long time.
We just saw our
technical difficulty.
gender reveal
Oh,
come across our we just saw our little gender reveal come across our little screen, and you can see my wife's excitement and my disappointment in that picture.
oh boy. Oh boy.
That's funny because with my go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you shooting for another one though, right? Njord?
We have been trying for again almost 3 years now.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
Excuse me.
I'm a praise.
So, yes, sir. But that's funny because our first one, obviously I wanted a daughter, but I think my wife was pretty much happy with either one, so we were both pretty content with the daughter. And then the second one, we were both wanting a boy because we already had a girl. And we were like, I was like, God, I don't want to do this again.
I'll tell you, I'll be getting that cut, if I get my boy next.
Right.
That's what I did.
And you know what? You are just kind of cutting in here, man. I really love the top because you see how multifaceted it is, though.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, one thing that I hope, and again, Krinlee, I don't know, but I love that question that you present. Like, okay, well, listening to other people talk, or specifically me, because I've had the discussion before, or the different points of view. Like, Njord said, his was really, he saw the religious side, he saw the non-religious side. And then just having the discussion, it's one thing I would like everybody to take out of this is that it is so multifaceted. And in my opinion, again, this is just me sharing my dad life opinion, is that let's not focus on the wrong thing. Let's not let one aspect of this discussion overshadow the other aspect of it.
Right.
And be able to, when we talk about sex education, and again, that's why I say this is when a man and a woman, when they have a baby, that's one section of it. And then we talk about the relationship part, right? And then we talk about the faith-based part of it, right? Because honestly, I respect that. I respect people that are like, I'm waiting until I get married. And then you bring up a point about that. Intimacy, right? Intimacy also goes through communication, right? If you don't know how to communicate with your other, a book that I read that my wife made me read, and I'm pretty sure you guys have heard of it, My Love Language, or it's a love language book, and it talks about...
you can take tests.
Yes, to talk about your love language and how you communicate or how you receive certain intimacy, but communication as well in the sexual education discussion, right? We're talking about, good people. We're talking about morality. We're talking about, so one thing for the listeners and hopefully us, and I'm actually really sad that Sensei couldn't be in here and add his perspective to it, because he has had the discussion before.
Well, I was actually going to hit on that point in a minute. So,
but yeah, I just hope that the discussion does not get overshadowed or it gets so convoluted that we don't want to talk about. And then you put up a really good point about, as parents, let's not convolute that conversation so bad that our kids don't want to have it with us. And I think that's like one of the biggest messages I feel like, just by taking, again, just listening to Krinlee talk about it. Yes, let's not make it to where it is. And the same thing with the chat. It is our responsibility in the household. And you said it too. It starts in the household. And that we ensure that our listeners and us, we perpetuate or we promote that ideal of having open communication within the house to be able to talk about this and other topics that are as sensitive. So,
one of the things that I thought about, right, is I kind of want to have the conversation prior to really the exploration of her finding it on the internet. Not necessarily have the full-blown conversation that she understands all of it, right? But at least start having that comfortableness before it's discovered there.
Right.
Or they're getting the information from their quote-unquote friend. That's not the best source to get it from.
Right.
So, okay, we are going into our last 5 minutes of the actual recording, so I'm going to change scenes here, guys. This is probably how it'll end up going. We'll probably switch over to the next scene, the ending scene, within the last 10 minutes of the stream here, just so that we could kind of get ready. We want to stay on time when it is live, guys. We're going for an hour, and then we'll do our After Dark show, so we can continue the conversation and potentially let loose a little bit more with the lips and the ideas and the things like that on that part of the show. So if any viewers are out there, we're switching over to our stream is ending. If you want to continue the conversation with us, don't be afraid to hit up.
Hey, Sensei Jon is in our chat. How's it going, my guy? You actually were just my very next topic. So for our those in chat, those who are listening to us, I will not be here next week. I do go and have my call rotation, so I will not be present. One of the things that I would absolutely love, Mr. Sensei Jon, miss you a lot, is I'd like your input next week. I'd love to be able to hear. I mean, if you guys want to carry this this topic on, because it is such a big, broad topic, and Sensei might bring in some other things to discuss.
Well, definitely, yeah.
But I would definitely want to hear Sensei's input on this. So that's kind of my one request. But yeah, I definitely want to let everybody know I'm not going to be here next week. So y'all have a great recording.
Right. You know what? I want to say thank you, Njord, for bringing this up. I felt it. The time went by so fast. I was like, wait a minute, it is an hour already? What?
And look at that. I wasn't controversial.
It's a great topic, and you know, hopefully you listeners, you know, have listened to our little discussion about it, and that it spurns one thing: communication with your kids and your family about it, and it not be taboo. Like Njord, I think you said it, like, you know, the whole taboo part of it. You know, it's we want to make sure that our children. Number one, my thing is I don't want my child to be miseducated and manipulated. And the best way I could do that is to get ahead of the ball, like you said, you know, and have these.
Oh, and do your research.
Absolutely. So yeah. Anyway, like you said, I want to say thank you for bringing that to us here. We're going to continue the discussion here in the After Dark. We're going to, you know, like I said, just kind of, if you want to join us there, go ahead. And what I need to do is I need to get the, you know, the link in the chat situation going again. You got to figure out all the chat stuff so that can be put into the chat.
It's a new platform, bud.
I know. No, even if you like copy and paste it or something. But I just wanted to say, number one, if you guys got anything else before we switch over to After Dark.
Krinlee, what you got for?
Man, I really don't have anything. I hope my kids don't have kids. Other than that, that's it.
Okay.
I would like to shout out Audrey Brooks for being in chat today.
Yes.
Let's go ahead and give her the horns.
Yes, 100%. She came up with a couple of things. You know, parents should be the ones to tell their own kids, not the schools. So that's probably going to be my topic that I'm going to talk about in the After Dark, because I completely agree with you.
Yes.
And let's see, they showed her a movie in school. So,
I think that was a sex education thing. I think they showed us a movie too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Audrey, thank you very much for being in the chat.
Yes,
Sensei, awesome seeing you in here. I love it. And I hope to see you all in 2 weeks.
All right. So, you know what? We're not even going to try to coordinate this anymore, but I want to say thank you guys for listening to or watching this week's episode of the Dad's Life Podcast. Hope that you tune in next week, and hopefully you head over to our website, shadowpackwest.com. Join our Patreon so you can join us on the After Dark. If not, hopefully we'll see you here next week where you can get your dad life, dad advice. All right. Peace out,
Later, guys.